Hello, and welcome. Welcome to the Caucasus Podcast. And today our topic it will be about things that may surprise you and are still surprising me in Georgia. Yeah, so this is something that we'll be discussing today. I'm looking here whether everything is working perfectly, and today I wanted to share with you a little bit about things that still surprise me even after 17 years. So, the first time when I went to Georgia, that was January 2008, so already some time ago. And last time, so from the moment that we are recording this particular episode of the Caucasus Podcast, so today, I came back from Georgia like more or less 2 months ago. So after all these years, still there are some things that when I was living in Georgia, I was studying in Georgia, I was working in Georgia as well, and I was studying at university. Still there are some things that surprise me. And as you're often asking me how the life in Georgia looks like, I thought that maybe today I will share with you 5 things that even after those 17 years, or 17 even plus if you're listening to that later on, I haven't just got used to that. To some extent they are surprising me. So stay with me also till the end, because I will have a little bit surprise for you as well. Yeah, so if you are with us for the first time here, so my name is Asha, and I'm the Caucasus specialist. I'm also Georgian language teacher, I'm translator of Georgian language, I'm also owner of Języki Caucasus languages of the Caucasus, so the place where we teach you Georgian, Armenian, Azerbaijani, and also we prepare for you study materials. We have our small publishing house, as well as we are also giving you the courses, materials about life in Georgia, and soon I hope about Armenia and Azerbaijan as well. And this is the Caucasus Podcast, so our place that we dedicated for you to tell you more about Georgia, Armenia, Azerbaijan. And also we share with you about the realities of life in those countries, in Caucasus in general, about culture, about history, a little bit about tourism from time to time and touristic places, also news on what's important happening in the Caucasus, some challenges, regional challenges, and much more. So, if you want to get to know more about the Caucasus, so the Caucasus Podcast is the place that you will find this information. And today we will be talking about a little bit my personal perspective. I just want to highlight it from the beginning. So, in today's episode of the Caucasus Podcast, this time I won't be sharing any studies, any research that much. I'll be talking about my perspective, so someone who has studied in Georgia, who I was also living there and working there in different areas of business, and I did the workations, I did the trainings as well, had been on different study trips, and also I have Georgian friends and Georgian co-workers, because I'm cooperating also with, and have been cooperating with Georgians also for some time already. So let's start maybe then with the first thing that is on my list. So that will be food. Yes. So when I arrived the last time, so that was more or less November 2024 in Georgia, it was business-related trip, and I was staying in Georgia for several weeks. The first thing I did, just after, of course, exchanging money, getting my SIM card and things like that, was to buy fruits. Yes. I'm a vegetarian, and I was talking about being vegan and vegetarian in Georgia, and like how to manage that in episode 13 of the Caucasus Podcast. So you can go there as well. We will link that into the show notes of today's episode. So I won't be able to tell you that much about those meat-based dishes because simply I haven't eaten them. But my teammates from Języki Caucasus languages of the Caucasus are more of experts in that field. but that's why today I wanted to tell you more about the food from my perspective. So the thing is that the thing that always surprises me, maybe like that, is how tasty and juicy and just good the fruits and vegetables are in Georgia. And right now, maybe just one thing. So you need to buy them, or I buy them. You don't have to, but I buy them always from local grocery shops or from a person just selling it directly from the street. And from those big shops and supermarkets, they often taste simply differently. And this is not something I do prefer. The thing I mentioned, like what surprises me how good it is, this is from the places that I buy. So no matter whether this is November, whether this is March, whether this is August, if I go to Georgia, my diet consists mainly of local seasonal fruits and vegetables, of course, plus khachapuri and things like this. But I do hope it will stay like that in Georgia as well, and that the local grocery shops will survive simply and will a little bit win, let's say, the battle with international supermarket brands that often also are coming to Georgia right now, which is okay, but the one thing that's where I buy also those my fruits and vegetables and majority of grocery, this is like from Georgians selling that from small shops, etc. Yeah, so that's one thing that always surprises me. And by the way, it's also like buying there, it's a good way as well to practice simply your Georgian and to have some like nice interactions, I would say, with Georgians. And when I was, for example, let's have a small story here, because when I was studying and living in Tbilisi at university, I was always buying the grocery, so fruits, vegetables, etc., from a man just having his like stand next to the building I lived in. And each week, he was witnessing like my progress in Georgian language, and how my Georgian is getting better. And I was asking him also about lots of questions about how to call this fruit and that vegetable in Georgian as well. So I remember when my parents came visiting me when I was studying there, we with this person, to some extent, let's call it like became acquaintances, friends, we can say, to some extent. So that when my parents arrived, he was telling my parents how good I am with my Georgian, like he was praising me to my parents, and how good I am like with living, studying then, that I was doing okay, etc. Like this was part of my community that time. And the fact that I was shopping there, by the way, the fruits and vegetables he was selling were very, very tasty. This is also like additional benefit that still surprises me to some extent, because this is something that I can still observe in Georgia, and this is great, and I really, really love it. So that's a surprise that in a very, very positive way. So as we are talking right now about the buildings, yes, because this stand was next to my building when I was renting an apartment. As we are talking about buildings, the next thing that I cannot somehow get used to, this is Georgian buildings in general, and the construction ideas and the development ideas of Georgians. This is not something I would like to underline. This is not something that I want to say that this is whether it is a good thing or a bad thing. This is just something I consider intriguing, maybe this way. And all the time, like something new surprises me somehow. So the first thing, this is elevators in Georgia. So the lifts, elevators. When I was living in Georgia for a longer time, because right now I'm mainly visiting for a couple of weeks or a couple of months, like that, I had the rule that I don't find and I don't rent a place, like an apartment, on higher floors. So I I will have no problems with finding a pocket money or change to pay for the elevators. Because yes, if you haven't been to Georgia yet, this is something that happens very often, especially in the older buildings. In the elevators, there is just next to the panel when you are choosing the floor you want to go to, then you have to also pay very small fee, but still you need to have money, and you need to put the money there so that the elevator will start moving. Simply, yes, it works. It works this way. So I have noticed as well that even in newer buildings, it happens as well. Situation like that you need to have maybe not really the money as such, but you will have a separate code that you need to put there so that your elevator starts to move. And as I said, I'm not saying that it is whether it's good or bad. This is something that's it still intrigues me to some extent. So it's like a dedicated code for you to use the elevator. So you no longer need to put the money there, but you are just like, you are still have to, like, you are paying for the parking spot in a building that you are renting, for example, or owning an apartment. So then you also would need to pay additional fee on monthly basis just for using the elevator. If you are not paying that, you don't use the elevator. Like the elevator is simply not moving. Why is that, you may ask? This is a very good question. So what I have heard is that the money for the elevator renovations is being used for the maintenance of this elevator, etc. Why it is not included in a standard rent that you're paying? That's a very good question as well, and one day we will have probably a bigger investigation, so then as a result I will prepare a separate episode on that, how it all started, because I have my hypothesis about it, I have my theories about it, but I would prefer to share facts with you, not just my theories, but in general, this is something that is totally intriguing. With the old buildings, this is something that's, it surprised me a little bit at the beginning, but then I got used to that. And when I was renting also flats and apartments in the newer buildings, it appeared it is like this as well. So that's like all the other levels. Sometimes, to be honest, I prefer even to walk like 10 stories, 10 floors, because I have some kind of like, I'm being a little bit afraid. This is just my thing. I'm not saying that everyone has the same problem, and also sometimes the elevators just won't work simply. So you have to be prepared for that. So this is the part that is always intriguing me and surprising me. Those elevator part, but not only the elevator. This is something that surprises me, let's say, in Georgia, in the construction business, because the construction business in general, and especially like the superstructures. So it means, when you have a building already, this is built, and then you have like several additional stories that are being built on top of the existing building. It is something that has been happening in Georgia for over like very a long time, couple of decades, almost a century if we count it, or even, it is already a century, because it started over 100 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. And so it is something that is quite common in Georgia. So then you have like additional 2, 3, I even heard of like 4, 5 additional stories being built on the existing building. And the other option, this is the expansion of the building. So then you have a building like a block of flats, and then you are like expanding, making wider, etc. So imagine this: you have a flat, an apartment on the second floor in a block of flats. So it is not just your building, you are living like you have just your apartment, and then you have a balcony. So one day you think, awesome, I have a balcony, so it is like additional extra space, and I need additional extra space for that. So you build walls around your this area, like your loggia, your balcony, and then it no longer is your balcony, but it becomes additional room or a storage, etc. So some people in Georgia go even further. So what they do is they build like additional balcony, or they add additional like something looking like balcony, but this is already built like additional room, and they add pillars underneath so it won't collapse simply. So they are adding additional levels to those building, so it will be like, let's call it more or less safe. So then your flat, simply an apartment, becomes twice the size that you started living in. And the creativity of Georgians in this matter is something that surprises me. From time to time, I still, when I'm wandering across different cities, etc. I will talk about this in a second as well. So I see lots of buildings or blocks of flats created or expanded in this matter, and their creativity is really fascinating. The fact that no one comes there to those owners and puts fines on them and demands the demolition of additional things being added, and like being a little bit in like the danger for the building is what additionally surprises me really here. And I did a bit of research on that. So with the elevators, not yet, but with those constructions and superstructures, etc., I did a bit of research. And if you want to have a separate episode, by the way, on that, about how it started, why it really happened, and why it is still happening, what are the regulations and laws behind it, what was the root cause, and in which cities it happens, and the most often, etc., because it's really fascinating story across, as I said, almost already 1 century of Georgian constructions. Let us know, by the way, in the comments. So we will prepare in some time additional episode just about it. It will be like a analysis for you, different and like telling you this story, because it is really fascinating. This is, I know that in some maybe in some other countries it happens as well, but in Georgia it is so much connected also with the history, with the land, with what was happening in Georgia across the centuries. So it is it is really like different level. So as we are talking about also creating additional place and being like the community, let's move maybe right now to another one. So the something that I called like helping others. So right now the other situation, imagine situations like that. You need help. You need like help with finding a hotel. You go into some kind of health issue. There is something happening like to you, like it may look severe, etc. There's like some kind of crisis, smaller or bigger, whatever. Very often in Georgia, what will happen, that people will just start helping you. Like everyone start discussing it, everyone debating, or if it's something severe and very bad, lamenting about it, like, oh my gosh, how it happened, oh that's so bad, etc. And not everyone, of course, does that, and not maybe in all of the situations that you will be in. But if you are somehow part of the like smaller community, this is something that you may observe, and it will be like this is in a way that I would still keep on my list, because this is something that still surprises me and have been surprising me on different levels, let's say, in Georgia. And maybe this is something that's also different to the country that you live or you are from. So maybe you will be already prepared, let's say, for that as well. So I will give you a little bit maybe strong and severe example, but it shows very well what I'm talking about. So I was buying one of the times when I was living in Georgia, I was buying vegetables next to this big crossroads. It was in Tbilisi, and there was a moment when the car accident happened. So a car hit the bus. Everyone, I don't exaggerate, like everyone immediately ran to see what's going on. I'm the one, like the only foreigner left there, standing still, not going on the street, looking what happened, asking each other about the details, helping the driver, etc. So everyone is involved. All the people who were like in the vicinity of, let's say, 400 meters, and I'm not exaggerating, went on the streets asking each other, shouting, lamenting, oh gosh, etc. Even people from the buildings that were next to this crossroads went outside to see what happened, and went on the streets, like everyone looking there, discussing, etc. I'm not saying whether it's good or bad. I'm not judging it or like putting my opinion, trying to say whether it's good or bad. I'm just saying that in other countries that I lived, and also in Poland when I'm from, it is a little bit different. So we would, of course, help people in this situation, but if I just see that someone is already taking care of the situation and situation is being taken care of, I just move on with my other activities. It's not like I'm getting involved no matter what. Like, when I was on this crossroads, I had to wait more or less like 5-10 minutes to finish my shopping, because the elder lady that I was buying the groceries, so fruits and vegetables from, she just left everything. I just went on the street, left me there as well with her groceries there, with me not yet paying for everything, and just was running there and lamenting, oh my gosh, I hope they will survive, etc. So this is something that it still surprises me. This is not something I get used to. And what surprises me the most is that everything stops. It's like when it's the like big crisis or something important happens, like no matter what you're doing, maybe if you will be, for example, working in Georgia. So this is also some situation that I have been many times. Like you are a part of the discussion, something, this is part of the project, etc. There is a meeting and something happens. So we instantly change the topic. It is not like one person is dealing with that. No, everyone gets involved. So our other work just stops, and everyone gets involved in the discussing, maybe debating, hopefully resolving the problem. So everyone just run to deal with the situations, no matter whether they are able to help or whether this is already being taken care of. And I have been discussing that with my Georgian friends to show that, in other countries we do things differently. So like, let's talk what's happening in our country and in Georgia as well. So many of my Georgian friends said that they just often also want to be part of the group. Yeah, so they want to simply be part and to support and to help, etc. So this is also something that still surprises me. As I said, this is not something that I'm not judging it to any extent. Maybe it will be a fun fact for you also to get to know Georgia better. And as we are talking about the cars already, so let's go on to the next item I have prepared for you. So the cars in Georgia. The cars in Georgia, although it slightly changes, like when I'm comparing it for the last 17 years, let's say, Georgians right now have for sure more money than they had 17 years ago or 15 years ago, etc. If you compare it like in general. And more cars are also being imported to Georgia from like US and Europe, etc. And they sometimes are of better quality than they have been a couple of years ago. The Georgian cars you can find on the street. This is like the other fascinating topic for me. So there can be cars like with no bumpers at all, just piece of car only driving with no lights working, and still people drive it and often don't fix it or don't fix it straight away, just use it. There can be cars that are imported from Japan or UK, for example, and still with the steering wheel, let's say it on the other side. So in Georgia, there is, as in majority countries, I think, in the world, there is right-hand traffic. So the steering wheel, then, it will be as a standard option on the left-hand side in the car. But if the cars are imported, as I said, very often from Japan, for example, or from UK or other countries, like with this left-hand side traffic, so they are not sometimes converted. So it means the steering wheel, it is not being moved to from the right to left. So the let's say standard of the Georgian road. So from what I know right now, it is changing, and there have been and will be in future also additional regulations regarding car safety in general, which I think is very good and quite important for Georgia on many levels. And there will be not only implemented, but there have been also being executed as well, which is great. However, still, here as well, the creativity of Georgians is something that surprises me. It doesn't mean that each and every Georgian like has a car like that, but the fact is, Georgia is one of the very, very few, if not the only country that I have seen so many different examples on that. Even in other countries from South Caucasus, I haven't seen so many cases of this car creativity thing. By the way, also the car is quite important in Georgian culture as well. Georgians, especially Georgian men, like the cars, and cars, some new cars have to be big cars and things like that. This is like with cars, this is totally different other topic as well. And there is also one additional situation to share with. This is not only about like the quality of cars, about where is the steering wheel, etc., etc. But once I was a passenger going in a taxi, and we were 5 people there, plus a driver. So it is not like standard car. The car has to be a little bit bigger. So let me tell you a little bit of story here like that. Our taxi stops, and there are like 5 people of us. So I say, okay, so I will go to the back, because I was the first one going into the car. I'm sitting in the back, like back of the car, and I'm feeling like this is something different. Like I don't have that much space for my legs, etc. I'm looking around, like I'm sitting in a different place of the car, and then I realized I was sitting in a trunk. Yes, exactly. So the trunk of the car, the back of the car, where normally you have your luggage and like additional space, etc., was converted into additional 2 seats for the people, so that the driver, can take more passengers and earn more money, as I would assume. The safety of that solution, and in general these solutions, this is totally different topic. I won't be discussing that right now, because we would need to go into the regulations, etc. And I think that would be also fascinating topic, the traffic, the cars, car insurance. If you want us to tell you more about it, let us know in the comments, and we will prepare an episode about that, because this is also another words for that. But in general, what I wanted to share, that's something that I think that's there is a moment that I think I've seen it all. I've seen it all with the Georgian cars, and then the moment happens that I'm a passenger in a taxi, that I'm sitting in a trunk. Yeah, so that's really fascinating topic. Okay, so we've talked about a couple of them. So before we jumped into the last part for today, I wanted to share a surprise that I mentioned as I'm talking about the thing today that surprised me. I have a surprise for you as well. So this is a webinar. Yes, we are preparing our first webinar that this is not about the Georgian language, but this is about life in Georgia. So I'm very happy that I can share with you this news, and it will be on the 12th of February. It's the only thing that you need is to just join to sign up, so we can send you the link, and we can send you also the recording then after the meeting. And the topic will be work and moving to Georgia, whether this is a good idea or not. We'll be talking about it from different perspectives. I'll be sharing my stories and also my research I done in these fields, and also sharing the experience of many of my friends who are moving to Georgia, and also our students with whom I'm discussing those topics. I'm helping them a little bit to find their way, let's say, about discussing the jobs, finding a place to rent, etc. We'll be talking about all the things that are you may consider when thinking about moving to Georgia, whether you are thinking whether it will be easy or not to find a job here and how to work in Georgia. The one thing that we will not be sharing any advices from the legal perspective, from the tax perspective, etc. We will be talking about those elements of like cultural reality of life, things, so on and so forth. So if you want to get to know more about it, join simply our webinar on the 12th of February. The link to join the webinar you have already in the show notes of today's episode, so this is enough to click. You just need to send us the email, so we are able to send you the links and all other elements and information that you would need. You don't have to be live. You may just join, and then you will receive from us as well the recording the day after, so you can watch it on your own as well. And if you are watching and listening to our podcast after the 12th of February 2025, so there is still possibility to have this material, because then it will become after that a part of our online course, Georgia Modern Life and Traditions. So this is like big portion of a very reliable and good portion of information about the modern Georgia, everything that you would need to know if you are considering moving to Georgia, if you have Georgian spouse, if you have Georgian family or friends, and you want to understand Georgia from different angles, from the unwritten rules, from the written rules, etc. So we are talking about that in this course. Everything you can find in the description and the show notes of today's episode. So that is a surprise. I hope that will be a good extension of what we are talking in today's episode. So if you want to get to Georgia, get to know more about Georgia and get a grasp of how living and working there looks like, so I'm more than sure this webinar is exactly for you. So for us today, the last thing that I wanted to share, it is connected with walking, strolling, wandering, going on the streets and the cars I mentioned as well a little bit. So this might be my Polish or Central European thing. You tell me. I'm very curious how it is in your countries and what are your thoughts. But as I said, I'm sharing my personal experience and my thoughts, so that's it. So I will start, maybe also give you a little bit of background story for that. I was once on the airport in Tbilisi, flying to Armenia from Tbilisi, because I had small time, it was easier, etc. And my Georgian friend, who was seeing me off that day, said did like this: "Oh, Asha, look, I bet they are Polish." Yes, and pointed at some people. Or at least they are from Central Europe. There is no other way. And I said, "No, how can you tell? It's they look normal. they don't have anywhere written or any flags or anything." And then he said, "Okay, they may be Polish, maybe Czech, they may be German, somewhere there." And you are wondering maybe right now why he said it. Okay, so they were having backpacks on their backs, sweaty a little bit, because it was early summer, so they were sweaty. They were doing like this, taking the sweat from their faces with the clothes that they had on, etc. And they were just wandering because they want to go somewhere, buy some food, etc. With the luggage, so the backpacks on their backs, etc. Not any trolley. So they were looking like that. And you know what? They were Polish. I was as surprised as you are maybe right now, but he was 100% right. And I quite rarely look and like see Georgians just carrying also the backpacks, bags, with them, like on their backs, etc. Not just walking across the city, with everything on their and in case you can drive somewhere, in case you can use the car, in case you can use the trolley, or whatever that may help you, you do that. This is what I observe with majority of my Georgian friends. You don't walk like longer distance if you can go by car. And I'm not saying it just doesn't happen in Georgia at all, and each and every Georgian does that, but my experience is the majority of Georgians don't do it this way. And I see it much, much less. And when I do it in Georgia, because this is something like I would do as those Polish people were on the airport, I always have my backpack on me, and I'm going through, for example, the whole Kutaisi to the bus station just with my backpack, or even two backpacks, one in the back and one in the front, and I'm just walking. Yes, I have my legs, I will walk. What Georgians would do, they would just take a car, would put all the luggage there. They would, I have of course my water, my food, everything with me. I'm just like prepped totally for everything. They would just buy it. Yes, the moment they would see water in a supermarket or a shop, they would just buy it. I have everything prepared with me on my back. Yeah, and I'm just walking there. So, and the Georgians, when they see me and other people like that, they just look so surprised, like, what is happening here? Why they are doing this this way? So once I was meeting also my friends, Georgian friends, and she lives in other city than I was living that time in, and we wanted to meet, so I went there by minibus, so-called marshrutka, in Georgian, and from the bus station it was across the street on the other side of the river, of the street, etc., of the city, etc. So I just walked to the cafe. And when we were meeting, instead of taking any Bolt, taxi, bus, whatever that was possible of the transportation, it was Sunday. So I planned already, so I will have more time. I will just walk those couple of like 40 minutes of something. And I just thought it would be a good, let's say, entertainment for me, that I just will walk across the city. I will look at the city. I will see what has changed, because I haven't been there for quite a while. So she was so surprised when I told her that I decided to do it. Like, I came on my foot from the other part of the city, from the bus station. And also when I was walking through different neighborhoods, like the people looking at me, why are you walking here? The stray dogs were even surprised, like, human, what are you doing here? So the taxi drivers also were stopping me, asking, do you need a ride? And I said, no, I'm just walking. It happens as well to me in Tbilisi quite often. People, if I'm just walking in those different areas, people would just stop me and ask whether I need to take a taxi or something like that. I even planned my route to my friend. So I had to change it, by the way, and this is the part that's what is surprising me in Georgia. That I had to change it because there was just street, just one part of the road that I planned. There was just street, just for the cars. There were no pavements, or there was like no good quality of pavements that I could walk safely. So I decided to like take the other route to the place that I was planning to get to. And even in some parts of cities, in different cities, there may be no good pavement, or they'll be already used as a parking spot for other cars, or maybe it will be just narrowed to a very, very, like, several centimeters that you are not able to pass it simply due to the expansion of the buildings, as I said, because maybe like in Tbilisi, especially in the city center, it was like that the pavements a couple of decades ago, which were much wider, but right now, as the expansion of the buildings happened, right now some of the pavements are quite narrow right now. So to some extent, I got used to, also by the way, in Georgia, to walking on the street if there is no possibility for me to use the pavement. But still, it surprises me, and as much I think as it surprises my behavior is surprising to Georgians. So what surprises me from time to time, as I'm very much like to my core connected with the culture of walking in the streets, of not taking the car if I can walk, etc. So that is still something that's it gets like my head's like, why don't you walk simply if it's just couple of minutes. So those were my 5 things that still surprise me in Georgia. I hope you maybe you have learned something new. I hope you had some fun with my stories. If you have anything like that on your own, you may just share with us in the comments. If you are watching that on YouTube, there is also option to leave comments. If you are listening to that in the podcasting app, in some of the apps there is possibility to put the questions, so you may share the comments there. We are reading all of them there as well. Or if you're part of our newsletter, so the Caucasian Mail, so then you can just simply write me back to one of the emails, and we can exchange our stories and have some fun with that as well. And if you want to get to know Georgia better from the perspective also living there, moving there, whether right now it is a good idea, and how to think about finding job in Georgia, or maybe like how the job market in general looks like, because we'll be not advising and not helping in finding jobs, but we'll be giving you a broader perspective on jobs market, on the economy in Georgia as well. There, our webinar is exactly the place you would need to be to find this particular pieces of information. And also, as during all of our webinars, we are answering also your questions. So if you have any additional questions that you want to discuss with me, that webinar is the best place to tend to join. The link to sign up for the webinar you have already in the description, in the show notes of today's episode. Webinar will be on the 12th of February, but if you are listening to that also later on, this webinar is a part of our bigger course, Georgia Modern Life and Tradition. So you will have as a bonus to this course also this material if you would like to join it. And the link for that, it is already, it is in the show notes of today's episode as well. So thank you very much for being with us today. If you like this episode, so let us know by liking it. You remember to follow us as well. And if you have a friend that is thinking about moving to Georgia and they want to know more about Caucasus, this episode may be perfect for them. So just send them, just after listening to and watching today's episode, send them the link. So that they can have a bigger, broader perspective of how life in Georgia also looks like. Thank you very much for today, and just one thing to remind you that this podcast is being prepared by Języki Kaukazu, Languages of the Caucasus, where we teach you Georgian, Armenian, Azerbaijani, and we also teach you about how life in Georgia and in Caucasus looks like. So if you want not only to know more about Georgia, but you want to learn the languages from this region, we are the perfect place to come for this knowledge, for the courses, for the study books, etc. Thank you very much, and see you in the next episode of the Caucasus Podcast. Bye bye.